Okay, so Germany, right. They're trying to, like, cool down their rental market,
Yeah.
which seems to be, like, on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at rent control as maybe the tool to use.
Right.
We've got a ton of articles, forum discussions.
Oh, wow.
We've got renters chiming in, landlords, even some experts,
I see.
all kind of buzzing about what this could mean, what the impacts could be.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to sort of,
Yeah.
wade through all of that and figure out what this means, not only for Germany, but maybe even,
Right.
what we can learn about housing markets globally.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting case study, I think, with potential global implications.
Definitely. So to set the stage,
Okay.
can you just give us a quick snapshot of what the housing situation in Germany is like right now?
So Germany's dealing with a housing crisis, especially in big cities.
Oh, okay.
Rents are going way up, and it's putting a lot of pressure on people.
I bet.
This is something we see in lots of cities around the world.
Right.
Affordability is a big issue,
Yeah.
a big concern.
Yeah, for sure. So it seems like the government's thinking, okay,
Mhm.
rent control, maybe that's the answer, that's the solution.
Yeah.
But it seems like from what we're seeing in our sources,
Yeah.
there are a lot of different opinions
Oh, yeah.
about whether this is the right way to go.
It's definitely a big debate.
Yeah.
Rent control is complicated.
Yeah.
There's good arguments on both sides.
For sure. So let's get into the specifics of the German system.
Okay.
I keep seeing these terms like Kappungsgrenze and Mietpreisbremse,
Right.
which are a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, those are tongue twisters.
Yeah.
But I can break them down.
Please, yeah, make it make sense for us.
Okay, so Kappungsgrenze,
Okay.
that basically translates to rent increase cap. So right now, in areas where housing is really tight,
Yeah.
it limits rent increases to 15% over 3 years.
Okay, so even if the market would say that rents could go up higher,
Right.
this is kind of like a safeguard
They say.
against going too high.
Yeah, it's a way to protect renters from those big rent hikes.
Okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then Mietpreisbremse.
So Mietpreisbremse, that's the rent break.
Okay.
So that's all about new tenants.
Okay.
It tries to make sure that landlords aren't charging new tenants way more
Oh.
than the average rent for similar properties
I see.
in the same area.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So if I'm moving into a new apartment, I can't be charged
Right.
double what my neighbor is paying.
Exactly.
It's been there for 5 years.
Yeah. It's about keeping things fair
Gotcha.
for new tenants.
Okay, so that's how it works now.
Right.
But the government's looking at making those rules even stricter.
Right. Yeah. So they're proposing to lower that Kappungsgrenze, that rent increase cap,
Okay.
from 15% down to 11% over 3 years.
Okay.
And they also want to change how they calculate the average local rent
Okay.
to make sure that the recent price spikes
Yeah.
don't have as much of an impact.
Interesting. So it seems like, these changes are what's causing all this debate that we're
Yeah.
seeing in the sources.
Right. People are definitely talking about it.
Yeah. So can you kind of lay out
Sure.
the main arguments,
Yeah.
for and against these tighter rules?
Okay, so on the one hand,
Yeah.
you've got renters, right?
Right.
They're the ones who are feeling the pain of these rising costs.
For sure.
They see these stricter rent controls as crucial,
Mhm.
as a way to stay in their homes.
Yeah.
They're worried about being priced out.
Right.
And they're saying that if rent increases aren't controlled, it's just going to make inequality worse. It's going to be impossible for people to find decent housing.
Yeah, and we're seeing in the comments,
Yeah.
people are really concerned about, being forced out of their neighborhoods
Right.
and losing that community.
It's a real fear.
Yeah, definitely. But then on the other side,
Yeah.
you've got the landlords and property owners who are saying, wait a minute,
Right.
this might actually make the problem worse.
Yeah. Their big concern is that
Yeah.
these tighter regulations will actually lead to fewer homes being built.
Oh.
And
okay.
that's because of supply and demand, right?
Right.
If you limit how much money landlords can make,
Yeah.
it makes it less attractive to build new properties.
I see.
Why build if you can't charge what the market will bear?
That's a good point. Are there any examples in our sources that kind of illustrate that concern?
There's this one Reddit user
Okay.
who was trying to convert a workshop into apartments.
Oh, wow.
And they ran into this huge mess of regulations and permits.
Oh, no.
And it made the project too expensive.
Really?
Yeah, it just wasn't feasible anymore.
Wow.
And that story,
Yeah.
it kind of highlights this bigger problem, which is that all these rules make it really hard to build new housing.
Okay, so the argument is that yeah, capping rent increases might help some renters in the short term,
Right.
but in the long run, it could actually mean there are fewer places to live.
Exactly. It's a trade-off that
Yeah.
we have to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's the question of like,
Yeah.
okay, if you're a landlord and your rental income is like really controlled,
Right.
is there any incentive to like actually keep your properties in good shape?
That's another worry.
Yeah.
You know, people are saying that these stricter rules might mean that landlords just won't have the money or the motivation to maintain their properties.
Right, because it's like you're putting money in, but you're not able to get like a fair return. Maybe
It's a tough situation.
Yeah, and this is where I think like the economics of it all really important, right?
Well, absolutely.
So can you kind of explain how supply and demand plays out in this whole situation with rent control in Germany?
Okay, so in a lot of German cities, you have more people wanting to rent
Right.
than there are apartments available.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's high demand, low supply,
Right.
and that pushes prices up.
Yeah.
Now, rent control, it tries to keep those prices down,
Okay.
but it can actually backfire.
How so?
Well, for one thing, like we talked about,
Yeah.
it can discourage new construction,
Right.
so the supply problem gets even worse.
Oh, I see.
And then it can also lead to this shadow economy.
A shadow economy. What does that mean?
So that's when things start happening outside the rules.
Oh.
So you might have landlords asking for extra payments under the table.
Oh, wow.
Or they might offer really bad apartments at really high prices
I see.
because they can't charge what they want officially.
So even though rent control is trying to make things fair,
Right.
it could actually end up making the housing market like less transparent and more risky.
Exactly.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue.
Yeah,
There's a
definitely.
lot to think about.
Okay, so we've established that Germany's got this housing crisis,
Right.
and that these proposed rent control measures
Yeah,
are causing a lot of debate.
definitely.
So in the next part of our deep dive, let's look at some of the other solutions that are
Sure.
being proposed.
Sounds good.
What are the alternatives to rent control,
Right.
and how might those actually like get at the root causes of this whole housing shortage?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
We'll dive into all of that in the next part.
All right, looking forward to it.
It's like rent control, it's trying to help renters now,
Yeah.
but it might not be the best thing in the long run.
Right.
A lot of our sources are saying it's like putting a Band-Aid on the problem instead of actually fixing it.
Yeah. So what are they suggesting instead?
Well, they're talking about ways to actually increase the number of affordable homes.
Okay.
You know, not just controlling the rents,
Right.
but like actually getting more places for people to live.
So how do they propose to do that?
Well, one thing they keep bringing up is how complicated it is to build.
Oh,
You know, like that story we talked about with the Reddit user
yeah.
trying to convert the workshop.
Right.
It seems like there's all this red tape,
Yeah.
all these rules and permits,
Yeah.
and it just makes it way too expensive.
And time consuming probably too.
Oh, absolutely.
To build anything new.
Yeah, and so they're saying if we can simplify that process, make it easier and faster to build,
Yeah.
then developers will be more likely to build more homes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that would mean more housing for everybody.
Yeah. I see the logic there.
Are there specific regulations that they're like pointing to?
Yeah. Are there any that are particularly problematic?
Yeah, a lot of them are talking about zoning.
Okay.
You know, the rules about how tall buildings can be or what you can build in certain areas.
Right.
They're saying that those rules often prevent developers
Yeah.
from building enough housing.
Okay, so they're suggesting we need to be more flexible
Exactly.
how we use land, especially in cities.
Yeah, like allow for taller buildings,
Yeah.
maybe, or allow for mixed-use development.
Right, so you could have shops and apartments in the same building.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and that would mean more housing units overall.
Exactly. It's about making the most of the space we have.
Okay, that's interesting. So So we've got simplifying regulations, being more flexible with zoning. What else? What other ideas are they floating?
Well, a lot of them are talking about public transportation.
Oh, okay.
I think that if we invest in better public transit, it'll be easier for people to live further away from city centers.
Okay.
Where housing is usually cheaper.
Right, so you don't have to be right in the middle of everything.
Exactly.
You can get around easily.
Yeah, and that would take some of the pressure off of those really in-demand areas.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it gives people more options, too.
Yeah, more choices.
About where they want to live.
Yeah, so it's like expanding the housing market beyond just the city center.
It's about thinking more broadly.
Yeah.
About how people get around.
And how that affects where they can live.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're talking about making it easier to build.
Yeah.
We're talking about public transit. But how do we actually make sure that these new homes that are built are actually affordable?
That's the key question, right?
Yeah.
And some of our sources are talking about incentives for developers.
Oh.
Like give them a reason to build affordable units.
So what kind of incentives are we talking about?
Well, they mentioned things like tax breaks or subsidies. Basically, ways to make it less expensive for developers to build affordable housing.
So it's less risky for them to take on those projects.
And it makes it more likely that they'll actually do it.
Interesting.
So it's about making it a win-win for both the developers and the people who need affordable housing.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some good ideas here about how to actually increase the supply of affordable housing. But I'm also thinking about, the social side of things. Like, who actually benefits from these policies and who might be left out?
Yeah, that's really important to consider.
So with rent control, for example, it seems like it would help people who are already renting.
Right. It gives them stability, knowing that their rent won't suddenly skyrocket.
Right.
But for people who are new to the city or who are trying to move, it might actually make things harder.
Oh, how so?
Well, if rents are artificially low, landlords might be less likely to rent to new tenants.
Oh, I see.
Because they could potentially get more money from someone else.
Right.
So it kind of creates this situation where it helps the people who are already in, but makes it harder for newcomers.
That's interesting.
Kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And then there's also the question of quality.
Oh, okay.
If landlords aren't making as much money, will they still keep their properties in good condition?
That's a good point.
Some people are worried that rent control could lead to lower quality housing.
Okay, yeah.
Because landlords just won't have the resources to do the necessary repairs and maintenance.
So it's like it's trying to protect tenants,
Yeah.
but it could end up backfiring.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, for sure.
Try to find...
So it sounds like Germany's not alone in this, right?
No, not at all.
I mean, we're hearing about housing affordability crises.
Yeah, it's a global issue.
All over the world.
Australia, Canada, the U.S., lots of places are struggling with this.
And are they trying different things?
No, yeah.
To solve it?
Every country's kind of experimenting with different approaches.
Like, what are some examples?
Well, like, Australia has some rent control in certain areas.
Okay.
But they're still dealing with rising prices.
Right.
Canada's been looking at this thing called vacancy control.
Vacancy control? What does that?
It basically limits how much rent can be increased between different tenants.
Interesting.
And then in the U.S., it's kind of all over the place.
Oh, how so?
Some cities have had rent control for a long time.
Okay.
Others are trying totally different things.
So there's no one-size-fits-all solution?
No, definitely not. It seems like it really depends on the specific context.
Yeah.
The economy, the demographics, the existing housing policies.
So what can we learn from all of this?
I think the big takeaway is that there's no easy answer.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's really complicated.
Yeah.
We have to be careful about unintended consequences.
Right.
And we have to be willing to adapt to
Yeah.
find solutions that work for each specific situation.
Okay, so we've looked at the problem. We've looked at the potential downsides of rent control.
Right.
And we've seen what other countries are doing.
Yeah.
So now the question is, what do we do about it?
Right. What's the path forward?
Is there a way to create a housing system that's both affordable and fair?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, so in the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
let's try to answer that question.
Sounds good.
Let's explore some potential solutions and see if we can find a way to make this work
Let's do it.
for everyone. So we've really gone deep on this housing issue in Germany.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We've looked at, the problems with rent control and what other countries are trying. But the big question is there actually a way forward?
Right. Like, can we find a solution that actually works?
Yeah, and that's fair to everybody.
Exactly.
So it seems like our sources are saying that it's not just about rent control or a free market.
Right. It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's got to be more complex.
It's got to be a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, so what are the key elements?
Well, the first thing is we got to increase the supply of housing.
Okay, so back to that idea of just building more.
Exactly, especially affordable housing.
Right.
And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
But making it easier to build, streamline those regulations, that could really help.
But that's not like a quick fix, is it?
No, it takes time.
Yeah.
And it takes commitment from policymakers.
Okay.
They have to prioritize housing.
Right.
And then you need all levels of government to work together.
So it's not just a national thing.
Right. It's local, regional, national.
Everybody's got to be on the same page.
Exactly.
Okay. So beyond making it easier to build, what else can we do?
Well, we could also offer incentives to developers.
Okay, so like reward them for building affordable units.
Exactly.
So how would that work?
Well, there's this thing called density bonuses.
Density bonuses?
Yeah, so basically, if a developer agrees to include a certain percentage of affordable housing, they're allowed to build a taller building.
Oh, okay.
Or a denser building.
So they get to build more
right,
in exchange for making some of it affordable.
Exactly. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then there are other financial incentives, too.
Like what?
Like tax breaks.
Okay.
Or subsidies.
Right.
Just ways to make it less expensive to build affordable housing.
Okay, so we're making it easier to build. We're giving developers incentives.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure that the people who need affordable housing actually get it?
That's where you need good policies.
Okay.
About who qualifies for affordable housing and how it's allocated.
So you don't want people like gaming the system.
Exactly.
Or taking advantage of it.
You need clear rules and oversight.
To make sure it's fair.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about supply. Yeah. But what about the relationship between tenants and landlords?
Oh, that's important too.
Yeah.
If they can work together, it can make a big difference.
So what would that look like?
Well, clear communication is key.
Okay.
Making sure everyone understands their rights and responsibilities and having fair lease agreements.
Okay.
And then, if there are conflicts, having a way to resolve them.
Right, like mediation or something.
Exactly.
So it's about moving away from that adversarial landlord versus tenant kind of mindset.
Right. It's about finding common ground.
Working together.
Yeah.
Are there any, new models out there?
Yeah. Some people are talking about community land trusts.
Community land trusts? What are those?
So it's basically where the land is owned by a trust.
Okay.
And the housing built on that land stays affordable forever.
Oh.
So it takes the pressure off of individual homeowners.
Okay.
And it keeps housing affordable for the long term.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really promising model.
So it sounds like there are solutions out there.
Yeah, there are definitely things we can do.
But it's not going to be easy.
No, it's going to take effort.
Yeah.
From everyone.
So it's not just up to the government.
Right. It's developers, community organizations, residents. Everybody has a role to play.
So it's really about
seeing housing as a human right.
Exactly.
And working together to make sure everyone has a place to live.
That's the goal.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
We've learned a lot about the complexities of the housing market.
Definitely.
And the challenges and opportunities that Germany is facing. But really, this is a global issue.
It is.
And it's something that we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely.
So to our listeners, get involved.
Make your voice heard.
Support affordable housing initiatives in your community.
Talk to your elected officials.
Yeah, and have these conversations with your friends and family.
It's important.
Because everyone deserves a safe, affordable place to live.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.